younger people were seeing this. It's from people who are a bit older, who've maybe been through the satanic panic and all that.
The satanic
But
panic.
Is that a
make
thing?
that
It
up?
was a thing in the 80s, yeah. And that's
Okay.
kind of where all
Was
this
that what it's called?
misconception started. And I think I've heard people say too, you know, D&D, that's very violent, there's lots of combat. Isn't that like going to bring up traumatic events in people's past and re-traumatize them?
We just recently had this was outside the group, but we just recently had somebody, what was it that he said? Isn't D&D like, what is that war game that they play, the video game?
Oh, like Call of Duty or something?
Call of Duty, Black Ops, yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Black Ops, and you just
Warcraft would
run
have been
around
much
and-
better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just run around shooting people, and I said, well, you know, first of all, you know, tree-hugging puppy lover over here, this is not, it's not gonna happen. And this is a therapy group, so we don't. Ours is actually based, I mean, you can do anything with D&D. You could go shopping all day if you wanted to, I guess. It'd be boring, but you could do it. Ours is based in a library. It's actually brilliant. Ours is based...
Not to brag.
It really is. Ours is based in a library, and we have little librarians called, what are they called, Svendigans or something? And they're little deep gnomes, and they go around and they help. So they'll provide like you a breakfast, like a continental breakfast in the morning or something, and a labyrinth with creatures that live in it, and then a bathroom where you can go into a bathtub and you can change your character. So if I'm getting ahead of myself, it's this awesome place, and then they go on adventures and they solve problems. So we have the kids write a backstory. And they can write anything they want to. There's no, you know, we don't give them any rules on writing. But so much of it is written from like a place of trauma or sadness, and they're trying to work that out in their character. And then we take that the next week, and we will try and write something that goes with their character that will help them with their issues that are in their real life. And they don't have, it's not so scary to them, because they don't have to address, I'm having this issue, I'm having this problem. It's that my character is having this problem, and then they solve it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, violence in combat are something we talked about a lot before we even started the group, for a couple of reasons. One was the re-traumatizing factor, and we decided to try and minimize combat against humanoids and make it, say, against like monsters, skeletons, shadows, something that won't potentially trigger that sort of thing. But the other big thing is there's the running joke in D&D that your characters can finish an 8-hour-long trip in 8 minutes, but then you have an 8-minute combat that takes 8 hours to resolve. So just that itself can take a lot of time away from the group itself, and kind of making that fluid and appropriate for the time slot we're in has to be something we consider.
Yeah, and as one of our gnomes pointed out, it was don't make the D&D, or don't make the DM angry.
That's just good life advice.
Yeah. So Ryan, this is Ryan's brilliance with this is, and I'm still trying to catch on to it, is if a man of ultimate patience, but when he has had enough of like teenage boys, you know, arguing over something, he will do something that their character is now having to work through, and they get it. Because if they keep doing like the argument or the fighting or whatever, there's going to be a dragon. So
the ceiling collapses.
There's going to be a mountain troll. Something is going to show up that they're going to have to deal with. That's going to get them away from that argument. And if they don't want that to happen, then they need to cool it. So it's really great. Yeah. Don't make the DM mad. Never piss off the DM. That's right.
Yeah, it doesn't go well.
Well, we could probably talk about D&D forever, but I'm sure you guys have some questions out there. And remember, if you ask a question, you get a little, I don't know what to call it, die bag.
Yeah.
The words you want to say are polyhedral dice set.
That's
exactly
what I meant.
Yeah.
So if anybody has a question, this handsome young gentleman.
This used to work.
Wait,
I don't even
you
know
have to hit the mute button.
I am.
Yeah, batteries
Again?
dead.
It has
batteries
like,
dead?
Yeah, I think the batteries are gone.
Oh.
Reloaded the batteries last night. Oh my goodness.
Hold on with your questions.
One sec.
We should start asking.
All right.
Okay, you're
It's
mine.
Engineering Mike up here.
Man in the green shirt.
Here.
Project.
So I'm good and loud to start with.
Okay.
One of the things that I've experienced with, and I'm going to use some judgmental language,
Okay.
with what I would say are supposed to be fully like balanced adults playing role-playing games is role-playing is a form of improvisation, and
Yes.
you kind of have to accept what someone else said and work with it. And what I've experienced is, like, someone will say, I do this, and then the other person won't accept that. They will just change the entire story a lot. I imagine that's even more of a problem with people who are trying to work through a sense of powerlessness in something that they've done in the past. How have you dealt with that, or has that just not been a particular problem?
It does come up, and especially, I think working with kids, they're going to be more impulsive just by nature because people grow out of that a lot more over time. So they'll say, you know, like, I'm just going to punch him, and we say, are you sure you're going to do that? It's like,
How does the rest of the group feel about that?
Yeah, and a lot of double checking before we actually kind of carry on with the official part of the game, I think is something that's just generally required. And that does bring up another concern on its own, is you have different gamers with different expectations. Some people power game and just want to make like the most overpowered character possible. Some people are just in it for the combat. And it is work balancing those different interests.
Yeah.
Do you guys say something at the beginning, like when you're starting a new group, about how the group should make decisions, or like what process they can go through? I'm genuinely asking that. I don't know.
We have like typical, well, atypical group rules, I guess. So the rules are for group is that it's a therapy group. So whatever is in this group stays in the group. But the kids want to talk about the game so much that you can talk about the character, and you can talk about, you know, what the wizard did or what the sorcerer did, but you can't, you know, talk about, you know, if there was a reason behind it that was personal. So you can't talk about the human in the room, other than the human characters, but you can talk about the game.
Yeah, and I really like allowing players to set their own rules before the game really gets going. Say, as a group, how are we going to handle this? Are there any things important to you guys that you want us to be able to talk about, not talk about, that sort of thing?
Yeah. And sometimes those are in private, so like, you know, if we've had like somebody with a death in the family, then we were really sensitive to that, you know, for a while. Or, you know, if we have somebody that's afraid of spiders, then, you know, we will wait a little bit before the spider swarm comes.
Wow, there's a lot of great questions out there. I can see them already.
So I'm curious, like, how you guys deal with the angry kids or the temper tantrums. Like, do they keep each other in check really well, or do sometimes you guys have to step in? What are measures you take to kind of help with that?
Yeah, I think with anger specifically, people have done a really good job keeping each other in check. It's more the competitiveness, or when it turns to like teasing or mocking, or maybe not quite realizing you're being offensive.
Yeah.
Where I think we have to step in a lot more.
Yeah, and you know, this is gonna sound so sexist, but I'm throwing it out there. Like, he knows what I'm gonna say, because we talked about it. We balance the groups. We have usually 6. We usually have 3 boys and 3 girls. But it seems like when there are girls in the room, things are kind of like, you know, mellow. They're like this level, right? And they're fun. But if we have the boys alone, like if the girls are missing, it's like chaos in there. They want to kill things, mutilate things. You know, they want to destroy the world.
Or at least we perceive it as chaos.
Well, Ryan being the male of the group, what do you perceive of those
See, I look
days?
at it, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I like to think of it in a different perspective, is that guys, when they're teenagers, develop more slowly. We lag behind a little bit. That's just a developmental thing that happens on average.
Yeah.
So on average, the guys will be a little bit more rowdy. at
Let's
that
just
age.
kill it. Throw flaming darts, you know.
Yeah. Although I guess we have had a couple girls that just wanted to shoot it, right? Yeah, just shoot it, just shoot it. What is it? You see an old lady at the side of the mountain, or at the side of the mountain, what do? Kill her. Just kill her. I don't know who she is.
I will say one thing we have had to address with regards to anger too is anger at play styles. Like, some people say might get offensive as the group's sharing meta knowledge between them. So the group's talking out of character about what their strategy should be, even though the characters can't necessarily see each other, hear each other, talk to each other. And that does break the role play aspect a little bit of it. Some people are fine with it, some people really dislike it, and it ruins the experience.
Yeah. What did we call it the other day? Are there kids in here? No. we called it a bastardized version of 3.5. It was, we kind of make it work for us, but people who, we've had a couple of people in there that have been like D&D players before, and they really like, you know, that's not really the rules. And then Ryan will make an announcement saying, so we're going to introduce this character, and he's not an actual official character of D&D, so if anybody has any problem with that, you know, say something now.
Yeah, I'd say the vast majority of our characters, our players, haven't played D&D before, so that gives us a little flexibility in how we teach it, kind of what the expectations are. I took a 3.5 character sheet and took about half the stuff off of it.
Yeah.
Because it's just too time consuming for our purposes.
Yeah, it was too long for teenagers. I think they were getting overwhelmed with.
Bored.
Yeah, bored. Yeah, bored. But it's, I think it's pretty good now. Yeah.
Next question. Go ahead,
Try and
Philippe.
get this out of the room.
Are people allowed to be dicks?
Yes, next.
We have,
If it would help them get over, I don't know.
we've had that. We've had that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing.
And yes is the answer, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here, but I promise I'll bring it back. So there's this really famous personality test called the MMPI, and they ask a question on it, or a couple of questions, like, have you ever thought about hurting someone? Do you lie to people? And it's a true-false test. And the reason those questions are on there is to tell if you're telling the truth on the test itself, because everybody has thought that sort of thing once or twice. Everybody lies. So it's one of those things that if a person's thinking it and they have a hard time getting it out otherwise, it's not necessarily best just to ignore it, but if it gets out in D&D and you're able to see how it impacts people, maybe you can put a little thought into the critical aspects of it. So yeah, people can be dicks. Dick things might happen to them in return, and oftentimes we're not the ones who do that.
Yeah. And plus the pro-social coins really help that out, because if you want to level up, or if you want to get some, you know, buy a spell, or buy a weapon, or something like that, then you're going to need those coins. So if you're being a dick, nobody's going to give you a coin. So it is D&D, but we cheat. So, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, a lot of questions.
Or do they just want the poly? No.
The usual dice set.
That's it.
The magic dice.
Oh, it's an incentive.
These are the new coins, by the way.
These are your pro-social coins, right, sir?
Sorry, your head.
Right, okay, well, what have your results been, you know, and how long lasting have these results been for, you know, the outcomes that you've done with these therapies?
They're actually really amazing. They're, given that we've only been in this for like less than a year, we've had the reports we've had from the parents and the kids that are in the group, that have stayed in the group. We've had 3, I believe, over the course that have left for,
Something
I
like
think
that,
it's
yeah.
only
Various
3,
reasons,
for
yeah.
various reasons, yeah.
I'd say very few characters, if they make it to, say, 2 sessions of group or more, they stay in it.
Yeah.
One thing that was Bev's idea was to track things numerically so we can do a little data analysis at the end. Because what we found, we were doing some research before we started this. It's like, how have people done this in the past? What are the results? Are there more effective ways? And there's a lot of anecdotal reports out there of therapists using D&D and role-playing games, but there's not much actual data, unfortunately. And I'm a big data guy. I like data. So.
Yeah, mostly in the studies. There's a lot of journal articles and studies, but they're doing case studies. So it's like an individual, or they're doing like maybe a half a dozen individuals. I wanted to really know like all over if this is actually working. So that's the little Aspie part of me, is that I just want to know. I'm Snoopy.
Okay.
And I can actually just speak a tiny bit to your question, because like I said, I'm not necessarily involved in the group, but I do refer some of my clients to them. And the clients that I've referred to them, I have yet to see one come back to me who's like, well, that was a waste of time. You know, almost all of them say something positive, like, I met people who were like me, or I didn't realize other people were anxious about blah, 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 you know, and I can't give out specific examples, but of the kids I've referred, it's only been a positive experience for them.
Yeah, and we also have forms and things that we give out to the kids. Not every time, mostly because I forget to give them out. But we have forms and things that we'll fill out, like, you know, how do you feel this group is helpful, you know, and then we have conversations. We get, sometimes we're not really even playing the game, we're just having conversations about issues that have come up in the group and how they've handled it. We've had conversations about like domestic violence and how it affects kids. We've had conversations about divorces and all these things just come naturally.
Yeah, I think one of my favorites was addressing cheating.
That's
Because
fun.
when you have a group of people sitting around rolling dice, it's pretty easy to fudge a roll, to knock it, to pick it up a certain way. So it's like, oh look, I just rolled the 4th 20 in a row. And we had a DM character come in and address the others in the group that was cheating against them, and having them figure out, how do you handle someone who's cheating?
They found a little, the group found a little, because we write the groups for whatever we need with the kids. So they found a little half-orc that was in a cage in a cave, and he had been cheating. So there was like an army that had put him aside, and they had to get him out of they had to choose whether to get him out of the cage. And he was like, well, they said I was cheating cards, but I wasn't. And then the kids had to describe how he was cheating and how they knew he was cheating and what the effects on them were for cheating. And then this little guy got to tag along with him and just annoy him for a while. It was really fun. So it was a really valuable lesson in cheating.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah,
Go
We got
ahead,
a couple
Philippe.
up here that have had questions for a while too.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
We need more dice.
Just line up.
Yeah, it might be
Oh, yeah,
easier to line up.
Would
than
that be
say in the
easier? Do
middle
you just
there.
wanna line up? Whatever you guys wanna do is fine.
Yeah.
We'll go
Okay,
ahead and
continue.
Everybody's still sitting. so
We
I guess
tried.
it's-
So if you're sitting and you want this, I can pass it around.
There we go.
Oh, okay,
Nice.
there we go.
I know, right?
We've upgraded, y'all. Hold on tight.
It should work.
We have batteries.
Tess?
Ooh.
So, kids are mean, first of all. And if you're working with teenagers who have social anxieties and other issues, other than the people in the group that they're playing with and being accepting of each other, have you seen outside individuals or other teenagers outside causing issues with the children in the group for playing this game with the satanic panic, as you put it, you know, being labeled a freak or a weirdo or whatever for
I
doing
think-
this?
I think we've seen the opposite. We've seen, part of what we talked about when we first did it, one of my concerns was, what do we do with kids when they are no longer in the group? Because we've given kids with social anxiety that some of which didn't really have, and there's a wide variety of kids that we work with, but some of which didn't really have friends outside. But we found that, well, we figured out early too, that D&D is actually available everywhere. So we've got kids that have started groups, and now they actually have a group of friends that they can play with, and it's really supportive to them. So I think the culture is really changing. So there's as I work in 3 different schools as a therapist, and I'll see kids with like D&D necklaces, like dice necklaces, or just, you know, like book bags or what, not book bags, what do they call them? Backpacks, and stuff like that, yeah, thank you.
Satchel.
Satchels, yeah. And it's fun, but kids nowadays are also doing a lot of like cosplay and stuff. If you walk through the high schools, there's like kids cosplaying just like daily, yeah, it's like daily.
Yeah, nerd culture has in large part become popular culture
Yeah.
anymore, and I think that that's a big positive. Another thing that is kind of interesting to deal with the group is one thing we do talk about as far as rules go at the beginning is this is, you know, considered a group therapy session, so we do ask that you don't talk about it too much outside of group, and if you want to, we ask that you use things like, you know, the troll, the fighter, things like that,
Yeah.
to kind of limit the exposure of other people's information. So it's totally in the hands of the clients how much they want their peers, their friends, their parents to know about them engaging in D&D therapy.
Yeah.
So that way they can kind of mediate who knows and that sort of thing too.
Yeah, and like any other therapy, it's private. You know, if you don't want someone knowing, then you don't tell. But I think so far all of our kids have been like, hey, guess what I did last Thursday? I just took down a mountain troll. It's awesome.
What did you do with your life?
What did you do on Thursday?
Thank you.
All right, I'm get everyone. Let's see.
Have you ever had any teenagers that have been raped? And if so, what would you do, really?
Can I my boss, can I give a yes or no answer to that? Is that?
Well, I would say that considering like how many clients we see that we work with kids exclusively, I probably get a couple referrals from DHS every
Yeah.
couple weeks. So I'd say that's not an uncommon thing for us to see, like by
Okay.
any means.
So I can answer that?
I think it's safe to say yes.
Hypothetically, if there was someone in the group.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, yes, we work with trauma really, really well. Yeah, it's a sense of power for kids. We've had kids in different situations, and one of the amazing things about D&D, I'm thinking of a couple hypothetical people right now that were able to overcome big issues because they felt like timid and kind of inside them, and wanted to be the fighter when they first came in, and because they felt like that was their label, was that they were the fighter, which I didn't see at all, but and when they actually won, they were empowered. And their life, their mom said, this is great. She's actually sticking up for herself now. I said, yeah, that happens when you take down a necromancer.
Yeah, and I think with something too that's a very intense personal trauma like that, judging how appropriate it would be for the group is gonna come to a large part on the client themselves and how comfortable they are with it.
Yeah.
And you have to take into account things like when it happened, the context.
Yeah,
Yes.
and we really do. We alter this for the kids in the group. So we've never just written a story and had it go with it, because that's more like a game. We actually write it into their therapy and their therapeutic goals and their diagnosis, and we're asking them, not all the time, but we ask them, we know what you need, and we ask their parents too, So if it's like, so-and-so is doing this, we try and address that in the, yeah.
And in general too, if you work with somebody with that kind of traumatic history, there's kind of a saying in therapy where it's like, you kind of have to decide if you're gonna approach the issue from the front door or the side door.
Yeah.
And for somebody with that kind of trauma, you rarely go in the front door. You're not like, so tell me about your rape, you're immediately gonna close down like, who is this person, Side door issues you would kind of address with somebody, like boundaries, like how to say no, how to say yes, the empowerment piece, learning to trust others, and in a way, just being in this group, no matter if you have had that history or not, you're addressing those side door issues, whether or not you realize you're working on that piece. So that's what I would have to say about that.
Yeah, and it's great because you have, am I still on? It's great because you have at least 6 people in the room that in some way, at least for that 2-hour period, really have your back. You have somebody that will go and fight the Dark Lord for you and take him down, and they're going to protect you, whereas you may not have felt protected before. I hope that sort of answered it.
Yeah.
Okay.
How long are your sessions, and do you have a hard cutoff, or if you're in the midst of like a combat, do you wrap that up?
I think I'm usually the enforcer of the hard
Yeah,
He's the hard ass.
I have no sense of time. Yeah, you see who's got the clock up here.
We do 2 hours usually, which isn't a lot for a normal D&D session. I'll be the first to admit that, but it's kind of an issue of logistics, school nights, things like that.
Yeah.
And we try to plan around like ending in a certain place, ending in a good, solid spot. It doesn't always happen because it's D&D. But yeah, like I don't think we've ever like ended on a combat or in the middle of something important like that.
Yeah. Yeah, usually the ending of our group sounds something like this. It sounds like Ryan's going, well, we've got about 10 minutes, we need to clean up, and I'm going, yeah, but could we go another 5 minutes? And then the kids are going, yeah, could we go another 5 minutes? So he's like outnumbered. And then he'll give it and go, yes, I think we can go another 5 minutes. So
It works.
And
it
then
works.
30 minutes later, no.
And then 15 minutes later, we're out the door.
Yeah, and we have to work on people's schedules because we're working with people who say don't have a driver's license and are getting picked up and dropped off and that sort of thing.
Right, yeah. So,
I kind of have two questions. The first one being how young do you start, and the second one, what if somebody is repeatedly being a dick?
The dick question keeps coming up. We know where your guys' minds are.
red.
This half of the room anyway. I think the youngest we've debated taking is 10 or 11.
Yeah, I think we chose against that because we have two separate groups. So the older, we call them the older group and the younger group, but there's only like a couple of years difference there, but that's a lot when you're a kid. So we have one that's like an older group, and the personalities are different than the younger group. The younger group, how would you describe, other than age, how would you describe these two groups?
A lot more impulsive.
A lot. The older ones, we have had topics like, that's where the domestic violence, we've had topics about drug abuse and alcohol, which we addressed with dwarven beverages, which I made up, but it was really cool. Apparently it can turn you into a troll too. We've had, we get out of the game and we have like huge, wonderful conversations. We have, the younger group, I think, goes a little faster with the game because there aren't that deep of conversations. But mostly I think in that group, it's mostly social anxiety too, in the younger one.
Yeah, I think too, we've debated doing a group with kids who are a bit younger, but we'd want to simplify the system a little bit just for ease of use, like say maybe use pre-made characters, maybe limit like spells, things like that.
Yeah, we kind of wanted to do, well, we want to do a lot, but there's only two of us. We wanted to work with like autism, really. I mean, we work with Aspies right now, and that's really just beautiful and perfect. But the higher
Which is her way of saying Asperger's, by the way. You're like, Aspie,
Yeah.
what? Okay.
Yeah, some people use it as a
Aspie's the
term of
cool word.
endearment.
Yes, not me. But for kids that are like higher in the spectrum, we've been talking about it. We don't have anything really set yet, but we'd like it.
Yeah, and to address the repeated dicketry, I would say my favorite therapy question isn't why did you do that, but what makes you do that? Like, what is making this person continually disrupt the group to cause trouble? And if it needs addressed at the source, that's probably the better way to do it. I would say it generally addresses itself through the rest of the group.
Yeah, the group is usually the ones that handle that. I remember the most beautiful thing. There were two teenagers in the older group, and there was a guy that was being a dick, but his character was like, what was it? It was like evil.
Yeah, it was a chaotic evil character being played
Yeah.
kind of as you'd expect a chaotic evil character to behave.
Yeah, and our sorceress next to it, who is just this brilliantly creative young woman, turned to him, and when he really was being a dick, turned to him and she said in a very, very therapy way, she said, "So, what is your motivation behind that?" and she was talking to him. She was using motivational interviewing with him. She was like, what did she say? She was like, something. It was beautiful.
I don't remember. I remember the intervention. I don't remember the specifics.
Yeah, it was. She just sounded like a therapist. It was. Oh, so why did you feel that? Oh, I remember. Why did you feel that was a good thing to do?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, I'm just curious about your motivation behind that.
So I'm gonna be the Ryan of the day.
Just about to, yeah.
Or you could be the Ryan of the day.
I'll be me today. I'll play
Just
me.
kidding.
So we were just informed we have about 5 minutes left, so we probably have time for a couple more questions. I know the gentleman in the Fallout jacket's been waiting patiently. So.
Oh, okay. All right.
We're ready.
My question's probably fairly simple, but what gave you the idea to use D&D for therapy?
That is a good question. We both have very different answers.
Oh yeah, we do. We yeah. So I had a client that had some social anxiety, and he had played a game and said how wonderful it was. We should turn that into therapy. And I walked into Ryan's office and I said, hey, I have somebody that had an idea, and Ryan goes, oh no, I've been reading about that, so yeah.
Yeah, and I was thinking back, because I kind of expected this question to come up today, and I think who gave me the idea was the son of an old coworker of ours who is older than I am, so he's been around a while, and he got diagnosed with autism when he was pretty young, back before it was as prevalent as it is now. And he was suggesting it as a therapeutic intervention because that was one of the few times he felt comfortable in a social situation.
Yeah. So two completely different answers, yeah.
So a couple more quick questions.
As GM and therapist, how would you resolve big arguments? Because from a therapeutic standpoint, you can't just have fist fights between players. And from a DM standpoint, you can't just have players killing each other.
We have in fact had fist fights between players. But I wouldn't say that's a good way to resolve the argument. It was more to stabilize a crisis situation.
Yeah.
And I would say a big part of it is letting arguments play out. One of the most important skills, and some of us learn this really well because we have younger siblings, is learning to problem solve and conflict resolve. Because people fight with their siblings a lot. It's natural.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, we didn't have kids punching each other. That's not what, that's not what he meant. Yeah, there goes my license. Yeah. No, usually they work it out between themselves, and it's not that it's two people that are having an argument, it's a group of 6 people, and they're all influencing it. So they really, and that's one of the beautiful things about this group too, is that they are working it out themselves, and then hopefully they'll give each other a pro-social coin. And
yeah, I might elaborate on that a little bit. Like I said, we have had fist fights between players. I don't think any of them has gone more than 2 or 3 rounds until they figure out it's a waste of their time.
Yeah.
Like nobody's gotten like their character really injured or anything. It's been more like, you hit me, I'm going to hit you back. Okay, let's deal with this situation.
Yeah. And in the younger group, I think that I think what it is that we need to move the game on a little faster at that point for them. Is there's like a lot of ADHD in there.
Okay. One more question? Or, okay.
2 more questions.
Okay.
We've got 5 more bags of dice up here.
Oh yeah, I've got plenty.
Go ahead.
So for clients that have a high level of social anxiety, what would your recommendation for a character or style of character to play be?
We don't recommend.
Yeah, as I say, you guys usually leave it up to the kid.
Yeah, some people say, you like to create characters that are based on yourself, and I think a lot of that is creating a character you're comfortable with playing. I really like playing arcane casters because I like having a lot of possible solutions for a situation, and playing a fighter, a bard, might make me uncomfortable, but it might be right up Deanna's alley, for example.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So,
as the characters develop, what we've found is, and of course not in all of the group members, but in a lot of the group members, they'll come in with some preconceived idea of what they are, so that you'll have like a really big boy, and he wants to be like an orc fighter, right, or half orc fighter, and then as he progresses, he'll stop thinking about what other people have projected onto him, and he'll want to be like a wizard or a gnome or something that's more, that's educational, or reads books, or
Because they can change characters.
yeah, we have a bathroom. We have an amazing bathroom.
Yeah, and what we did is that facilitates characters swapping classes if they find something that fits them better.
Yeah.
Okay, so one more?
Uno más.
How does PTSD, full-blown PTSD, I'm not talking like just trauma or, I'm talking about full-blown PTSD where you have almost all of it. How does that fit into the?
Like every kid is PTSD?
No, like just one has all
all the
depression, anxiety, social, the whole.
Well, aren't they just perfect for D&D group?
It's so far it's worked. Well, PTSD is like there's a lot of there's a lot of components to it, And PTSD, you can get it from, I mean, people are most familiar with PTSD from like the military, right? Most of our kids have not been in the military yet. But we do have kids from, we have military school members, so I heard. But we have kids with PTSD from domestic violence or from, you know, from like really bad, nasty traumas and stuff. And once they, we don't make anybody come to the group, but once they come in, it's like they've kind of decided for themselves that this might fit them, and they're willing to work through it. If there's something that we really need to watch for that's a trigger for them, then we're going to watch that really carefully. And once they get to a point where we think they can handle it, then we'll kind of test it out just a little bit, kind of like do a hit and miss, kind of like a, you know, kind of mention it. And then if they seem okay with it, then it's kind of like you deal with a phobia, sort of, you know, like, yeah.
Exposure
Yeah.
therapy.
And then the more successful that they are in those encounters in D&D, the more successful and that you feel inside, and the more successful you are in the outside world. So it's really great for trauma.
And just building on that really quickly, one of the really common symptoms of PTSD is reactivity. So reacting very strongly to certain stimuli, certain people, certain types of things.
Yeah.
And probably the best way I think that's been found to address some of that is the slow roll exposure back into it in settings that are very safe, that are very comfortable for the person, and that are minimally triggering.
Yeah, and also a piece of that too is it's not like typical therapy where you're addressing your issues. You're actually addressing the issues of your character. So you're helping somebody else, which is really a great way to do most things, I think.
Yeah, your character, for example, could have PTSD, and you would know why your character has that. And I think that's one of the big benefits. You know your character's motivations and how they'll react. It's a lot harder if I looked at Deanna and said, Deanna, what are your motivations for acting like this and for
I wanted to be a dick, you guys.
Yeah, why are you being a dick?
You need to sit on that side.
Yeah, you need to go to that side.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we are out of time officially here.
Are we?
We
Okay.
are, we're past actually.
Thank you guys for coming. We